amazing work of art, and I just had to watch this movie over again because, ooh, the chills. I literally was crying at the end. A lot of you knew I already posted about it, but I just had to go back and watch it because, man, if this wasn't the best Disney movie I've ever seen. Back then, Disney put out a lot of wonderful masterpieces that pale in comparison to what they make today. The animation styles, the tone, the emotion, and interaction the animals had with each other made you feel as though you were a part of that world. And every time I watch this movie, even though the years are few and far between, I always feel like I'm translated to another land. These 2D hand-drawn characters are more believable than a lot of what Disney puts out today, which is basically just rehashing a whole bunch of stuff and retelling stories over and over again that they've already retold in the same medium. I actually purchased the sequel on Amazon because, well, they didn't have it for rent. And even though I think the first movie far outclassed the sequel, there were things in it that made me so freaking freak the hell out. Part of what I loved about the first Bambi movie was how dark it was. It wasn't afraid to show death, and it did tension in a way that a lot of movies struggle to achieve nowadays. It felt like back then, characters had a lot more heart, there was a lot more passion in the animating, and you felt way more invested. So what I want to do is go through the movie bit by bit and lay out the highlights of why I love this movie so much, why everything captivated me, and how. The first thing that stood out to me was the music. Oh my god, the music, the soundtrack that they utilized for Bambi is so unforgettable. Every time I hear it, or if I ever do hear it, I know instantly that that is from Bambi. Also, the establishing shot of us going through the forest and them using the different layers of animation, or you can see, as like in this picture, there are different layers pasted on top of each other that gives it depth, and that's what they could do back then, but for some reason, this looks a lot more whimsical and immersive. And I know, even the water animation you could see there, it's not as believable, but the atmosphere that they're setting for the audience makes it believable. You forget that these are layers, these are static images, they're not actually there. 3D modeling and landscape building seems a lot more immersive than this does, and they use a lot of different elements. But there's obviously the passion there that you can feel in the movie. I love that they spent a lot of time in the thicket and the forest showing what the home of the creatures look like. They're basically putting us into the point of view or perspective of the creatures on screen. This is what your home would look like. This is how the animals see it, as this beautiful, charming, and serene place where the animals aren't just animals, but their personalities, just like us humans that have their day-to-day issues, arguments with each other, annoyances. You can see the point of view from each animal, like this field mouse who wakes up and is like, oh, there's a drop of water. Oh, I'm gonna wash my face before I start my day. You learn about family structure in this as well, and the animals live in total harmony. Maybe for me, it meant a lot more because I absolutely love animals, so seeing animals on screen, I'm like, this is so cute, look at all of them. I can't wait to see all of their stories. And part of what I absolutely love about storytelling is writing from the animal's perspective. I do a lot of my stories like that because not a lot of people get to know what it's like to live the life as an owl. And while everything here is anthropomorphized, it still is a great way to sort of get inside the imaginative space of a rabbit or a wild hare or an owl and what life might have been like for them. One thing I always wondered though is I'm like, there are creatures in the forest that eat each other, like friend owl over there is not going to be a friend. Does he say good morning to his neighbors in the morning and then, swoops down and eats them at night? Does he have to fly many miles away from this forest where he sleeps and shits so that he can feed on other creatures, the same type of creatures that live where he lives, but that are not directly his neighbors? I think about those things. You don't think about them when you're younger, but you definitely think about them when you're older. You're like, okay, you're really fat, so you've clearly eaten a few of your little neighbors there that are all smiling at you and telling you good morning. Or maybe they have selective memory. The opening segment when Bambi is learning to walk and just seeing him there with his mom is so alluring to me because it's not something you see in everyday life. Sure, in the wild you see mother deer or does with their fawns and they're prancing around, but you never actually see them in their home, in their beds right after they've given birth to their baby. You can look at videos like this and see the everyday struggle. Like mother thinking that her baby is going to somehow follow her and leap over the fence. But just as Bambi would, you see the baby figuring things out how to keep with his mother. You see her looking alert at her environment, trying to soak in every stimulus, making sure that everything is safe for her baby, still watching out for danger as the baby is trying to figure out how he's going to get across to his mother. I love how inquisitive Bambi is about the world around him, and he always asks his mother little things. Much of the communication in Bambi in the 1942 movie is through body and facial expressions. The mother talks more than Bambi seems to, and she's always eager to tell him about the world and teach him. She's a gentle and elegant soul, and that's why it was all the more painful later on when Bambi experienced the heartbreak. Another thing I loved about Bambi was how adorable he is, and how the animators captured the body of these deer. You can tell that, especially in these older types of animated films, that they studied animals and how they moved. They did this for Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron too. And I've seen a lot of animations or gameplay of creatures that just look freaking stupid. Like they're like, oh, I think this is how a horse is supposed to run. Close enough. This is how a horse looks when it runs. No. No, and definitely not. There are endless references that you can use just on YouTube alone for how horses actually move, how their necks move, when their feet hit the ground. I mean, this was something that just drove me insane. Maybe it's just me because I really love horses and I love to see animals moving in their natural gait. And the people back then wanted the animals to be believable, so they studied the animals very closely and matched the movements of the animations to the real life animals. This is why I love Bambi, because even though Bambi has exaggerated movements when he's playing, the movements are still within the confines of how an actual fawn moves, aside from his head and eyes, for the sake of making him more relatable to humans. I also love learning about the world through Bambi's eyes. Every time he experiences something like thunder and lightning for the first time, you can tell that he's totally immersed in it. His mother has been through this before, so she knows what lightning and thunder is. She's not scared at all, but Bambi is. And one of the things I love about the old style classics is that they animate not just through moving pictures, but also through sound, so that you as the audience is also fully immersed in what the animal must be feeling. It's not that the leaves are actually making trumpet or piano or whatever instrument is playing in the background sounds. It's that it takes us to the place where his little imagination or observatory mind is being taken. This is all new for him. I think the reason why they do this is also to provide us with an easier way of seeing the forest and hearing and feeling the forest through the animal's eyes by manipulating our emotions through music. In these scenes, I feel all at once the beauty and danger of nature, just as I imagine the animals in the forest would. Also, the color palettes that are used in the animation and the illustrations come to life all at once makes you feel like you're looking at a painting moving. Every movement of Bambi and his mother and the creatures of the forest tells a story. It deeply puts you into their perspective. Their eyes are expressive. Notice how Bambi's mother moving is very calm, but also alert. I also enjoy when she's teaching Bambi for the first time things that he didn't know, like how dangerous it is to charge out into the meadow. It makes you really think about deer and their mothers and how they got these same lessons. Maybe not in English like we speak, obviously, but through smell, body language, and observation. Bambi seeing his mother scared or hearing the scared tone in her voice lets him know that there is something really dangerous out there, even though you never actually see the danger.
The meadow!
Wait! Bambi, wait! You must never rush out on the meadow.
I love the gentle tone in her voice when she teaches Bambi. She knows that everything is new for him, so he doesn't understand. He's just a baby. So she speaks in a way that is calm, so she doesn't scold him into making his first mistake. If you never taught your kid that they shouldn't do something and they do it, it's to be expected. They're kids. So you correct them and you tell them why that wasn't the right thing to do. And then if they don't listen to you and put themselves in danger, then you scold them. But she handled things the right way. She also is an exemplary epitome of a mother. You don't really see a lot of mothers in Disney movies because they're usually dead. This one ends up dead too, but you get to have some character building in how she interacts with her son and how important she is in her son's life. This also personifies deer in real life and how important fawns' mothers are to them. They teach them about danger, what to do, what not to do, what to eat, how to survive the winter, and a host of other things. The fawns, as they grow up, will learn through observation and experience what their mothers can't teach them. But that foundation starts starts really early when they're young. I really also enjoyed how you could hear the fear in her voice. Bambi's mother, who I nicknamed Colleen, is always calm and elegant and reserved and ladylike. She's very gentle and soft-spoken, but when she saw that her son was in danger, her whole demeanor changed. She yelled out and jumped in front of him, something that Bambi has never heard or seen his mother do.
Meadow!
Wait! Bambi, wait!
Look at the fear in Bambi's eyes, because for the first time, his mother, even though there isn't any danger, her demeanor tells him that there is something out there to be feared. When she tells him to wait there so she can go check it out, he instinctively lays low to the ground like fawns do and waits for his mother to inspect. And I just love the use of tension. Like I said early on, one of the things I absolutely love about this movie is the utilization of tension. As she is going out there, we as the humans know why there's danger. Because of man. Men hunt deer. Men are apex predators. They eat deer for food. And I like what someone said in one of the comments of the sequel for Bambi, which I also watch and now I own. Can you imagine how scary it must be for a deer to be minding your own business and then you see one of your friends' head explode in front of you, or one of your family members or your girlfriend or sister just drop dead after you hear this loud pop? You don't see the danger, you might smell the danger, and sometimes you won't smell the danger. But what's certain is that you're standing there and then your lights out. And that's why it's especially dangerous for deer. And I think that's why animals fear man so much. It's because it's something they can't see. If a wolf is chasing them or some other creature, they can see it. They know what it is and they can run from it. But a man can stand several yards away, camouflage, or be basically invisible to these deer and kill them from afar with seemingly nothing. And from that perspective, I felt scared with the deer. I felt scared with the animals. This freaking frame. The other thing I love is Thumper and the other creatures, especially Thumper. Thumper is a rabbit. He is Bambi's best friend, and he is older than Bambi. He was alive before he was. Sometimes I forget that. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, Thumper is older than Bambi is. So naturally, he's gonna be the one to be like, okay, you're still a baby. Let me teach you about the world. I know what I'm talking about. I can help you explore things, and I can show you where all the good things are at. And Bambi, of course, will follow other friends because they've been there longer than he has. So Thumper represents how healthy it is to socialize your child with other people, because Bambi might never discover certain things just being with other deer or just being with his own family. I also love Feline, and I love the voice acting for the characters, because even the kids that are voicing this, I mean, I think they're kids that are voicing it, it seems realistic. When he gets mad and annoyed, it just reminds me of Land Before Time. He really sounded annoyed. And then when they start playing around their mothers, I love how the mothers just look at them and laugh to each other. It feels so realistic. It feels like humans watching their own children play. One of the scenes I absolutely love as well is a scene that comes right after this, when Feline and Bambi are playing and then a whole bunch of buck and other deer run into the field. This is the first time that Bambi has seen adult deer, and he promptly goes to Feline and tries to mirror what the adults are doing, which is so interesting because it points out that a lot of what we learned is from our environment and other members of our species. The music ensemble that coincides with the deer's movement makes you feel at one with whatever the hell is going on screen, and I absolutely love that. Like, this is total escapism right here. I'm no longer my foxy self watching this. I am Bambi seeing these things for the first time. You're seeing this world through Bambi's eyes. In a way, we as the audience are Bambi. When his father comes onto the scene and he looks at his dad with that look, and the father just looks at him like... and then Bambi's like, okay. And the father doesn't say anything, he just walks by. And I think this is a lot more realistic than the second movie, even though the second movie is very touching and sweet. This is a lot more realistic because this is how it would be in deer society. While his father is happy to have come and see his son, because let's face it, that's why he was there, bucks are not actively a part of their fawns' lives. They want their offspring to survive, and I think they will actually protect their herds. But they don't have like a close and loving relationship with their fawns, blowing raspberries in their their tummy. That was something that was embellished in the second movie, and I wasn't mad at it. I actually liked it. But I do like the realism of the first movie even more. The other thing I loved, remember the tension and horror I was talking about? Well, in the next scene is when you get to see the danger that the mother was talking about. The entire time in this movie, you hear about danger. Well, not the entire time, but when Bambi's a little bit older and is going out with his mom, you know that there's a sense of danger. There's something out there that was mentioned, but that Bambi has never experienced. And then the tension, holy crap, the suspense and the tension when the father is standing there observing the forest, and then crows and birds are flying overhead, and he realizes there's danger, but you never see the danger. All you know is this elegant prince is careening down the hill and is freaking out, his composure completely lost, because, whoa, something is out there. Something made him get all freaked out. It must be really freaking dangerous. When Colleen can't find Bambi and they're calling out to each other, there's a tension that something might happen to one of them, that they're lost and separated. If you're a parent watching it, you may feel freaked out that something is about to happen to Bambi. He's about to get hurt. You think about what it would be like to lose your own child. And then promptly his dad comes to save him. And I love that the dad never really says a word. Up on this point, you can see how powerful he is, how he continues looking back to make sure that Bambi is following him. So many feelings in that scene alone as a gunshot rings off, narrowly missing them as they escape. Now when the mother emerges later on and she tells Bambi that it's now safe to come out, Bambi now knows what the hell they were talking about. That fear and that danger, he's seen it on other deer's faces, but he hasn't really seen it. He hasn't really experienced it. We also get to see through his eyes later on what it must have been like to wake up and see snow for the first time in your little life. Stepping into it and seeing how it works, experiencing ice for the first time, and Thumper is the one that introduced him to this. You see Bambi and Thumper having fun, and I like these little segments where you just have the both of them interacting. It's just them playing together. They're not on some mission, they're just existing and having fun. And there are a lot of movies and even animated films today that don't do that. Every time you see the characters interacting, there's always some bigger goal that's out there that they have to be doing. We have to get to the Great Valley. We're on our way to do such and such. And it's just cool to see them just chilling out for a little while. And then we get one of the saddest scenes in movie history. When Bambi finally loses his mother stays behind and tells him to keep running and not to look back. When I watched this over, oh my god, it really affected me because I realized something very interesting. His mother could have outrun him. She could have outrun him. As her legs were longer, she was bigger. It's very easy for her and his dad and any adult deer to outrun a fawn. But she deliberately stayed behind to make sure that he was safe. She kept her fawn in front of her at all times. And because she did, she was sacrificed. She knew that if man was going to take her, she wanted to be the one to be taken, not Bambi. And just knowing that, wow, just knowing that made me so freaking sad, but also made her death more meaningful. We get a time jump of Bambi having gone to live with his father, and between this part and when Bambi's mother dies, that's where the sequel that is made nearly 64 years later takes off. Some of that sequel doesn't make sense, but we're not here to talk about the sequel. I love how Bambi is proud and he's like, yeah, look at me, I'm cute now. And you can still see a hint of who he is in his face, and you kind of recognize him. Another thing that I thought about also watching this movie that made it more intriguing is that Bambi's brothers, the deer that we saw before when his father was stepping out into the field, there were probably a lot of them out there because his mother, Colleen, is not the only deer that stag has been around with. There are lots of lady deer that he's probably mated with. I don't think Feline is one of them. He's probably just a cousin of Feline. I think they changed certain familial relationships so that it wouldn't be incest. But probably a lot of those deer out there that are older than Bambi are his siblings, which makes me wonder, why weren't any of them chosen as prince? Were they not good enough? Like, that's something to think about. I doubt he's the only child sired by that buck. Oh well. I love also, like, these old cartoons that it wasn't a bad thing for a male and a female to flirt with each other. There was a lot more romance and flirting with the animals and pretty females and this Lola Bunny looking thing. Come on, that looks like Lola and Bugs Bunny. I wouldn't be surprised if they were inspired from that. It's cute how they're given liberties with that, because this guy's just like, oh my god, I'm in heaven, there's this hot chick I've never seen before. And then Bambi is like, oh, that's stupid, that will never happen to me. That's that age-old thing where they're like, oh, simps. And then it happens to him. And I like how back in this time, they weren't afraid to show the women using their wiles, because that's what women do. Come on now. We see a guy that we like, and we go for it. We bat our eyes, and we know it makes them weak, and that makes us feel great. Feline knows what she's doing. Oh my. She knew exactly what she was doing. She's been a little slut since she was a little girl. Anyway, sorry. That was out of line. But nobody could miss it. She was giving him those batting bedroom eyes since she was younger. It was so obvious she had a crush on Bambi. And I know what I'm talking about, because I'm guessing in that specific sphere, they're like 7 or 8. Time does go by, so I think around the time he meets Feline, he's probably like 7 or 6 or 8. And at that age, I had crushes. They weren't serious and carnal like adult stuff, but you had the little butterflies in your stomach, and you wanted to be close with that person, and your eyes look like this. So it's cute to see how they had a crush on each other and they grew up together, and Bambi is still like, "Thought, go away!" And she's like, "No, I love you." And then he's like, well, he is quickly brought out of the romantic phase when Rano comes along. One of the things I hated about the sequel is that they made him this brat. I much would rather his original storyline, but he's like, okay, look, you're all happy, but you have no business keeping this female if you can't defend her. So I'm gonna take her. And Feline is crying out for him because she actually really wants Bambi. That's who she chose. And Bambi's so confused, he's never fought before. And I'm only assuming he's never fought, which is another thing I hated about the sequel, because clearly he's confused, he's shocked, it takes him activating that instinct to fight, a Feline being in danger. But of course they had to embellish because the sequel needed content. I just love when he puffs up right here, because that is the first time that his manhood kicked in. He was all like a little boy before, but now that his female is being threatened, now he has to become a man and defend her honor. I love the color changes. I love the animations and movement of the deer. The animation just flowed. And I love how they did the lighting, because while they were fighting, this is probably what they were seeing. Remember, we're seeing things from Bambi's perspective, so he's seen other bucks fight, but he's never actually fought himself. And so when he's fighting and he's enraged, that's what feels like, that these two are no longer individuals. They're fighting machines. They're fighting to pass on their seed. And even though Bambi and Rano are darkened and sort of silhouetted, because this is being told from Bambi's perspective, he's still vaguely aware of the environment around him. But the environment around him isn't actually there. It's just background. It literally is just background. When deer are in rut and they're fighting, there is little that can distract them. A lot of male animals are that way, especially mammals. Their testosterone is very, very high, and Bambi's kicks in. You can see his composure change when he's beaten the other buck, and Feline just can't keep herself off of him. I love that Feline also stays true to her character, which was kind of changed in the sequel, because in this segment, she was so in love with Bambi to the point where every scene you see them with, even when he's playing with her, she is just so in love with him that she's all upon him like all the time. And Bambi's not as lovey-dovey as she is. And I like that they're not afraid to show that. See, every chance she gets, she's touching him, and he's all like, calm down, woman. I think that's just his personality, or maybe his father taught him, hey, if a female is following you, you have to let her follow you. You'll notice that experienced stallions or male horses will do the same thing. They don't chase females. The females come to them. The younger horses or colts will have their tongues sticking out like they're desperate and go chasing after the females and get kicked in the throat. So Bambi's either had some training from his father to keep his composure when he's around females, and even though he really wants to mount this female, he has to make her come to him. It's also a very good lesson. Then the danger scene. Remember I was talking about tension before in horror? This scene is one of the most iconic scenes I've ever seen in a movie. The tension of these pheasants, or quail, or whatever these birds are, hearing a man coming, and one of them is freaking out because she's like, and I understand her logic, he's coming closer, he's gonna find us, and when he comes too close, we can't get away. So it makes more sense to get away now before he comes. Her friends are trying to tell her, no, whatever you do, do not fly. And she's like, but he's coming closer. And I love that they were able to portray that, because in reality, even though you can dog on this poor bird, a lot of people probably feel that way. They panic. Anxiety is something that's very real. And the suspense, even as the audience, I'm watching, I'm like, oh my God, is he gonna come? Is he gonna, what's happening? And then when they tell her, no, don't go out there, and she goes out there, and you see her get killed, whoo, man, I wish Disney took liberties like this, like they did back then.
Listen, he's coming. Hush, be quiet. He's coming closer.
Like, even the voice acting and the looks of their faces, everything is done in such a way to illustrate sheer terror and fear and anxiety. And you can see the fear in the other birds' faces as well. They're scared, but they're probably more experienced and they've seen what's happened to other birds. And this third one probably has seen what's happened as well, but she's too afraid. In her mind, this thing getting closer goes against her nature. Birds instinctively will fly off if something gets too close to them because they know that they have no other defense but evasion. So telling her to be quiet and stay and not fly when this big thing that can kill you instantly is inching closer to you is going against every screaming instinct that she has.
Don't get excited. We better fly. No, don't fly. Whatever you do, don't fly. She's almost here. I can't stand it any longer.
Just watching her body drop on the floor and imagine being all those other animals that are hiding from this person and then you see a bloody member of your community just fall before you. This ordeal must have felt like War of the Worlds for them. It almost feels like that movie, The Darkest Hour, where the humans are being hunted by these aliens that they can't see. They can sense them sometimes and they get an idea that they're close when lights flicker, but they can't see them. And the next thing you know, someone's standing in front of you and they get ripped apart into ashes. And that's not it. Look at this very carefully. When they all fly off, notice, right as that pheasant falls, that's her dead body lying there still. Now take a look at this bird. Look at her face. Look at how scared she is. Her mouth is open in total terror. And that's not the worst part. As she is flying away, you see her fly up to the left-hand corner of the screen, and then the gunshot goes off, and then there's a puff of feathers. She was also killed. Whoever this person is that's hunting these animals, they're either doing it for sport or they're doing a mass hunting. They're probably trying to take home as much food as possible. And this is probably one of those situations where they're either psychotic or they're just trying to get as much food as possible for whatever they can catch. The other possibility is that, well, there's not just one hunter. For some reason, when I was a baby, I thought there was just one man doing all of this that made me even scared of him. But I think there are several hunters out there. The reason why there seems to be gunshots everywhere, I mean, everywhere the animals go, there's a gunshot here and a gunshot there. And I'm like, how is it that the man is finding these animals so freaking easy? Why is he omniscient? Like, why is he everywhere? Like, why is he omnipresent? How is he just ubiquitous in nature? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. But then I figured, I mean, his father, Bambi's father, did say that there are more of man. Usually only hear one gunshot whenever they were getting shot at, when the mother died, and when the father saved them. One hunter. But notice what Bambi's father says.
It is man. He is here again. There are many this time.
He said man is here again, but there are many this time, which insinuates that there weren't a lot before. And every time we've heard a hunter's gunshot, it was only that one hunter. So in the scene where there were lots of gunshots going off and animals were dropping dead left and right, it means that there were probably about a dozen men or more on the field or the meadow. You know how terrifying it must be for the animals to know that there are aliens in their midst and one of them is always stalking them on the field, and now there's like dozens of the aliens and they're coming from all sides and you can hear them everywhere? And then if you try to run away, things explode in front of you or bodies explode. Oh, there's your friend Jill. Her head just popped off. There goes Jack. Someone shot his dick off. God damn it. What about Bonnie? Her ass just got blown off. I mean, just right in front of you, just a big hole straight through her ass. Her entire bottom half is just freaking gone. And you never see what does it. This defies everything that the animals know to be real. Just like seeing aliens do that shit would freak us out. And it's not like they have anything to fight this back. All they know to do is run, and anywhere you run, you get shot at. They don't understand the concepts of a gun or a bullet or what's causing it. All they know is there's danger, and it's several yards away, but somehow, when you run as fast as you can, and you get like a mile away from them, they can still somehow blow your freaking head in. That must be one of the scariest things ever. Seeing Feline chased by a bunch of hound dogs that can rip her apart, seeing the fire eat through everything, and it was caused by man because he didn't put it out properly, knowing that a bunch of these animals lost their home because whoever was doing this wasn't experienced enough or careless and burned down the whole freaking forest. Seeing and hearing Bambi get shot. And apparently it was a flesh wound because Bambi would have been dead if it weren't. All they know is man came, their friends exploded, people got hurt, they died, and then the whole freaking forest is on fire. No wonder some animals are terrified of humans. And I thought this was an allegory for nature and how humans handle nature, and that's what I thought until I got wind of the original story and realized that it was actually a Jewish Austrian that was, through his story, his original story, which was a lot more dark than what Disney provided. You thought this was dark. That story's freaking dark. And it's all about Hitler's reign and what it felt like for them to be persecuted. And apparently Hitler banned Bambi. So Salten, the person who created the book from 1923, I believe it was. Yeah, 1923. That book carried way more fleshed out characters, and Disney basically censored this compared to the original novel, which I do want to read now in its entirety. I'm gonna go searching for that book, and apparently it had a sequel as well, because man, poor Salten. And I also found out that that guy who made the original story of Bambi for his book, he sold the rights for $5,000. I mean, that was a lot of money at the time. But can you imagine nowadays? Like, I don't think he's still alive. Because, I mean, I don't know how old he was. But he never, even when the movie was produced, he never got any royalties for the movie at all. And he actually regretted for selling the rights to his movie. He also stated that this movie was not a children's movie, even though I wouldn't count this as a children's movie anyway, by today's standards. But my parents grew me up on it, so it's everybody's movie for me. And back then it didn't really matter because death was still a very real part of the world. Bambi taught me a lot of lessons and gave me escapism that entertainment is supposed to provide. While you can still have a message in there, it wasn't ham-fisted like a lot of works from today. So it made me kind of annoyed finding out that Hitler banned it, because maybe the guy did say that it was an allegory for the whole Nazi thing, but really? You watching this and not having known anything about it, you wouldn't know. Or sorry, reading it, because he banned the book, not the film. As you can see here, which was really messed up. And I find that once people, this is one of the things, and this is why I love watching things like this, and finding out about the origin of things, because anytime somebody tries to censor something, or a very powerful party tries to censor something, or change it to suit their narrative, it usually is an oppressive party. See right there. They didn't like being called out, so they banned it. They censored it. Huh, I wonder what does that today. Anyway, I loved Bambi, and it's one of those things that will never get old. It's one of those works that will never get old. Oh my god, there's so much emotion running through me. I'm sorry this video was so long, but I actually just wanted to talk about it, because I think that works like this should not be changed, and it feels as though nowadays people are going back and censoring things, or trying to cut out things, or hide them, or making them not as accessible as they were. But it's very important that we keep these works alive, regardless of what time they came from. Because watching these is sort of like a time machine, but I really do believe that Bambi at its core is still relevant today, for so many reasons. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.